Now, into some lessons and information about seeds. Seeds are so amazing. There's just this little dry kernel in its dormant state. Looks like there's absolutely nothing happening, and then one day it becomes a plant. So they do seem a bit miraculous. My intention today, though, is to demystify that. As always, I'm hoping to reach people who have limited or less experience without making it too boring for the folks who have more experience, and always inviting people to share your knowledge as well so that we can pool our knowledge so that we are regaining lost skills and control over our own food supply. What better place to do that than with seeds? If you are buying seeds, you're going to want to understand the terms hybrid and open pollinated, also sometimes called heirloom. I hope to be able to explain those clearly, but in order to do so, I need an overview of what is called pollination, which is basically the process of plant reproduction, reproducing among plants. Now, as you hear this, please keep in mind, I'm not a botanist, I'm the homestead wife. But I hope that what I tell you here can encourage you to have some understanding of the science and appreciation for the science without feeling like you have to have the botany degree. We can respect the people who do and realize that the principles that are true, whether you're understanding them from a gardener's perspective or from a more scientific laboratory perspective. So what is pollination? Well, pollen is a dust that contains genetic material. Pollen is produced in the male part of a plant's flower, which let's call the anther. The male part of the flower produces pollen, and then that pollen needs to travel from the male part of the flower, which again we'll call the anther, although it's part of what you may have heard called the pistil. The pollen needs to travel from that male part to the female part, which we'll call the ovary. When the pollen gets to the ovary, then two different sets of genetic material can recombine to create a third unique entity, which will become the offspring plant, the future plant. That genetic information is then stored in a germ, which is then wrapped to become a seed, and then that seed lies dormant until the appropriate conditions are met for it to germinate, which means become a plant. So understanding the process of pollination allows us to understand exactly how human beings can be involved in that process of pollination. Now let's imagine the farmer or seed producer or scientist who wants to cross two different varieties of a food-producing plant. So let's take tomatoes, for example. Let's say I have a variety of tomato that's disease-resistant. I have a variety of tomato that has a bright red color, and I want that offspring. So I'm going to take pollen from one side, and I'm going to use the ovaries from the other side, and I'm going to harvest the seed that's going to produce the offspring that has the mixed characteristics that I like. That kind of seed is called a hybrid. It is sometimes marked F1, and that means filial one. It means the first layer of a genetic map, which is kind of like a family tree. So if you have the two parents, then that first layer, that first offspring is going to be F1, or the hybrid. And then going down with further combinations, it would be F2, F3, etc. Now, a thing about those F1 seeds, those first level hybrid seeds, is that those seeds do not breed true. What do I mean by that? So if you have seeds from that first level, if you then plant those seeds, you'll get a plant with the characteristics that you want. But then what about the seeds coming from that plant? What if that plant pollinates with its neighbor or pollinates with another plant in your garden? And what does that offspring look like? Well, that offspring is not going to be the same. That is not going to be a genetic line that continues the same trait because there hasn't been a process of stabilizing that new variety. Hybrid seeds are great if you're looking for a particular set of traits because they are bred by scientists to do whatever it is that they say that they do. My mother thought they were awesome. So here's the generational thing, right? My mother would have used hybrid seeds if she had them because that would have been something that would have improved her garden yield. Sometimes hybrid seeds are more able to survive in extreme climate conditions, or maybe they have a greater yield, or maybe they're more disease resistant. There's also a phenomenon called hybrid vigor, which is that in that particular crossing scenario, that F1 level has an extra amount of strength and capacity to survive extreme conditions, which is called hybrid vigor, and it's been determined that that is the case by extensive scientific research. So there are some advantages to having these hybrid seeds. But what are the disadvantages? Well, there is one huge disadvantage, which maybe didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but seems to be more and more a big deal to gardeners as we grow to think about the consequences. F1 seeds, hybrid seeds, do not breed true. You can't get a baby out of those seeds that's the same as the parent. So if you are a farmer or a gardener who's interested in self-sufficiency, you've just given yourself quite the challenge, because now you have food in your garden, but you have to go and purchase those seeds again every year. If you want those results that you have in your garden, you now have a dependency on that particular seed company and whatever technique they're using to cross those varieties in order to provide you with that F1 hybrid vigor, which is giving you the garden that you want. So a lot of people are wise to this right now. And so what we're buying instead of hybrid seeds are open pollinated seeds, which in a seed catalog are often abbreviated OP for open pollinated. And what open pollinated means is that these plants can be pollinated by whatever the natural process is for that plant type, whether it's wind pollinated or self-pollinated or animal pollinated, insect pollinator pollinated. That they're going through whatever this normal process is, and those seeds are breeding true, meaning that you can save seeds from that plant and you're going to be able to then grow plants like it. Another term you might want to be familiar with is self-pollinated. It turns out, I'm going to get real geeky about the science here because it's amazing. It turns out with plants that sometimes they have what's called a perfect flower. They have the male part and the female part right in the same flower, and that pollination can occur when the flower closes or with the help of wind or insects, but it can do it all by itself. And in fact, that whole reproduction process can happen on one flower, on one plant without any intervention. Excuse me. Those plants are called self-pollinated. We have several of the self-pollinated type of plant that are very popular among gardeners that we have in our very own garden. And I will confess that in my seed saving journey, the self-pollinated plants are the only ones that I have really succeeded with up to this point. So peppers, tomatoes, beans, peas, and lettuce. That's exactly the level I'm at as far as saving seeds goes. Once you get into the insect pollinated and then particularly the wind pollinated, things get a little bit more complicated in terms of how you're controlling your factors to get seed which will actually maintain or improve your genetic stock. So, but as far as purchasing seeds goes, you're going to find the self-pollinated seeds under the same category as open pollinated. They'll usually just say OP, just probably for efficiency, so that you understand that they're the opposite of hybrid. So the term that we haven't covered yet is heirloom. What does heirloom mean? Well, heirloom is not a particularly scientific term. Sometimes on a seed company website, you'll see them giving you their definition of heirloom, and that usually means something that has been passed down over generations, is something that is a certain age, older than a certain year, something that has value and has been shared over generations for some purpose other than maximizing commercial profit. The term heirloom is now very catchy. It sounds very appealing. And so all of the garden sales sites want to call themselves heirloom. So why would you want to get each of these different seeds? I've kind of covered it as we went along, but I'd like to just be really clear about what I think the respective advantages and disadvantages are of these types of seeds. If you are a first-time or beginning gardener, it's okay to go with hybrid seeds. It's okay to go with seeds that are most likely to succeed in your garden. It's also okay to go with seeds that are readily available or that you have easy access to. If you are purchasing starts, your plants all ready to transplant right out into the garden from a garden center, those are probably hybrids. Unless they are marked otherwise, they're probably hybrids. And that's how a lot of us have started our gardening journey. And you know what? I don't think there's any shame in it. If my mother liked hybrids, then anybody who likes hybrids is okay with me. However, if you are interested in saving your own seeds, if you are particularly motivated by the idea of self-sufficiency, or if you are particularly motivated by the idea of diversity in our food supply, and particularly genetic diversity in our food supply, then the art of saving seeds may be something that you are interested in. And as I've said, I'm not all the way through, certainly not an expert in this, but you know what? Very few people are. There aren't a lot of people who are great at seed saving because just like old-fashioned cooking, it's a skill that has been lost over the course of generations. So there are a lot of people who are learning together and celebrating the most expert among us. And of course, I showed at the beginning of this video a book about seed saving written by one of the most expert among my particular region of the United States. And there are a lot of books like that and also online resources that can help you to get started saving your own seeds. If you are saving your seeds, a couple things to understand. One is that all seeds are not identical. Even in a seed packet, each one of those seeds contains unique genetic material, the unique expression of a single plant. Not all plants of a species, subspecies, or variety are identical. Some are stronger than others. So in fact, when you're saving seeds, it's one thing to just learn where the seeds are on the plant and how to preserve them. It's another thing to understand how to get the strongest seeds, or the seeds that are most likely to represent in the next generation the characteristics that you're looking for. So that's something that I'm not at all qualified to teach at this moment, but to invite you to think about and invite you to journey along with a number of people who are excited about getting in control of our food supply again. Another thing to understand if you're getting into saving seeds is that different plants pollinate in different ways, and they have characteristics related to that. So for example, it may be harder to get a controlled pollination with a wind-pollinated plant. For example, carrots, it may be more difficult to get your carrots pollinated without wild carrots without being cross-pollinated with wild carrots. So that would be relevant. That's why I said earlier that I've started with the self-pollinated plants, and that has been successful for me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the Skill of the Month Club. I'm sorry if my voice that I keep losing here has made this challenging. I really did feel better when I started, but I felt myself coughing more and more as the video progressed. I hope I can let you know how important I think these skills are and how valuable I think it is for anyone at any level to engage with these questions and to say to yourself, how can I help to regain these lost skills in order to contribute to the stability and security of food for future generations, and also contribute to my own sense of stability and security by gaining some control or at least understanding of my own food supply. I really appreciate all of you engaging with these questions in whatever way you can. I appreciate how you contribute information and also just how you each take your own journey in terms of expressing these lost skills in your own life and in your own families. That's been the only talk that I'll do this month on garden soil and seeds, and I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.